Hey guys, welcome back to Trekyards. He is Commander Cucking.
He's Captain Foley.
And we're coming in like a storm today. Like a typhoon, you could say. Because what are we talking about today, Sam?
Yes, we're looking at technically a Star Trek Online game and technically an Invasion game. A beautiful both, which we absolutely love, Stuart. This is one of the newish Star Trek Online's bundle of old game ships, remade, remastered, put in their game, which you can play right now. We're going to look at them. We've already looked at, ironically, the Premonition fan variant before this. We're going to look at their version after. But now we get to look at their Typhon class. Stuart, how did you feel when you saw this? And I'm guessing you were thinking, haha, we're going to do this. So I hope you're pumped, because we quite like this one.
Yeah, I was excited to know we're going to be talking about this again. We have talked about the Typhon before. Go back and check out our mission. I think it's a mission briefing on it from
Long
years
time ago.
And compare it to this one. See how we did. How we've come a long way. Anyway, yes, a fighter carrier launcher, essentially, which was in the game Invasion, as we just talked about. This was fantastic back in the day. I love seeing this. I didn't really get the vibe that it felt like a Star Trek ship at all. We've had this discussion before, too, about fighters in Star Trek and how they don't make a lot of sense. That being said, we just finished Deep Space Nine again, and you hear the fighter wing so-and-so going in and all that. And I could see where they'd have a place, but at the same time, with the technology in Trek, it's a whole discussion about whether fighters are actually super effective or not. But I love the idea of a carrier with fighters.
Or at least one that's done truly custom. You couldn't just have like a BSG style, launching unshielded Viper style. It wouldn't work. And for clarity, 2016 was our Typhon, where we looked at both some concept work and also a fan model from one of the video games. So entirely fan detail, whatnot. And while brilliant, this is a far more detailed and accurate version. And I want to commend Stowe for doing a really, really nice model here. So it's you know, and given that, you know, the one we saw in the cutscene is a low res cutscene, this is the clearest people have really ever seen licensed work. So I'm very pleased with it. And yeah, fighters are an odd one. It also depends, I suppose, if you're sending a fighter carrier against like Klingons, it ain't gonna fly. But against a lower end galactic power where they have either lasers or something of the ilk, then potentially launching 30 small things that can do other things could be effective. Just not against a Dederodex where one bolt will kill one ship and there's nothing they can do. So use case,
Well, I mean, I kind of disagree with the Klingon statement there, because the Borels are small ships, and we do see them fighting in formations of 3 or more. So I could see fighters and Borels tangling quite effectively, because fighters would be not much smaller.
Head, I would think, though. I mean, like a small fighter.
It depends. It depends, but yeah, they're. If you got a squadron of like 5 or 6 fighters going up against like 3 Borels, I could see there being a good little furball, as they call it, a dogfight mode.
Ironically, disruptor-based weapons, you have a better chance of surviving because you can dodge a disruptor bolt, but a beam, you have a harder chance. So Borel is probably a better example. Although that's why I think we've talked about, like, if the runabout was a fighter, it's big but still small. That could handle some stuff, but that's not classed as a fighter. Anyway, so here is a render of the ship where we see the launch bays at the bottom, or the return bays, the launch bays on the side, thoughts? And of course, there's the non-registry version, I must just point out, because that's a custom thing you do in Stowe, so we've left that blank, just for pure design.
Well, like I said, it feels very un-Starfleet-like, at least in its construction. The accoutrements here with the striping on it and stuff really adds to that. But just the design doesn't feel like it would be Starfleet necessarily. Just kind of a bulky brick.
Curved brick.
Has 2 different modes, I might want to point out. There's a fortress mode and the non-fortress mode where it launches the fighters. And the fortress mode, it closes in. I also like the fact that it's got 4 nacelles on it. And the way they're positioned is quite unique, honestly. I remember back in the day thinking, this doesn't feel very Starfleet-like, but I kind of loved the design right from the get-go. So,
yeah, I mean, potentially you could argue a non-Starfleet solution needs a non-Starfleet design. There's some logic there. But of course, having the red pinstriping and RCS thrusters, Although no phases. Oh yeah, phase strips. Yeah, having all the things that you associate, it goes such a long way to make it feel right. And the text string's great here. It's very clean, very crisp. Again, phenomenal job. It is a strange one, but it's textured so well. I'm like, Starfleet, even if it's weird.
Yeah. You can see 2 photon torpedo launchers on the front. I would expect more photon torpedo launchers from something this tanky, like more like a gunboat, kind of like the Andor class from FASA, where I could picture some on the sides. Like I wish there was more torpedo launchers just to defend itself while it's launching fighters and stuff. But yeah,
because I don't know if the fighters. I think the Valkyrie is one of them from the game, and then they're in Stowe as well now. If they have any warp engines, so this thing would need to be able to defend itself. On the off chance it is fighting for its life, and once lost, the fighters would be super screwed. So having more weapons, I mean, it's a big... Well, actually, it's not a big ship. I say that, but it's not a big ship.
I wonder how fast this thing is, because in early concept sketches, they do show a deployment mode where it's actually attached to the bottom of a Sovereign class. So the Sovereign brings it in, drops it. So I wonder what its capabilities are necessarily.
Yeah, it's such a great scene from that game, by having literally the current legacy, the E, bring in the ship, and showing how small it is, gives you the instant whatever. But 4 warp nacelles implies at least they're compensating for its inability to go fast by doubling up the nacelles, implying therefore it should at least be pretty good. Now the E, of course, is very, very fast. I'd like to think it's got at least warp 9 as a max. Maybe not a 9 point, but a 9.
Yeah, well, even as we talked with the Constellation class having 4 nacelles, it's to swap out and to actually have long range. So not necessarily fast, but like long range, more high sustainable warp, because it can switch out.
Would that make sense for this ship, though?
I don't know.
That's the question. Maybe we'll see more in other views. But just to remind ourselves, this was the original concept sketch. Now, the fan version we looked at previously, it was its own liberties, and you can see how detailed this sketch is. It really is tremendous. Wasn't realised on the other version. It's far more realised on this new version. And I will just point out, this is an entire map to follow. So a modeler, which in fact was Tobias Richter in this case, could just follow this and make a perfect replica. I think this version we're about to look at is pretty darn close. It's all kind of, even phase strips, right? You can see where their placements are. So
yeah, you can even see the docking clamps on the top of it there, which are very similar to the docking clamps on the saucer, when the saucer separation for the Galaxy class. So that would attach to the bottom of another ship, which you can see the deployment of the Sovereign class there, which is very neat.
Let's go to a top view, which is a more general view. I like it. I do like it. It's big and bulky, but it works. Of course, it is a game model. A hero mesh would be a bit more high polygon. Before this is, I think it looks rather good.
I say there's not a lot of detail, but there's a lot of detail. You can see a few phaser strips on the top there. Not very long ones. They're shorter phaser strips. And then you can see like I think they're doors that open up. Those weird shaped things. Because doesn't it like fire straight up like when it goes into fortress mode?
It does fire everywhere. So yeah, I'm wondering what these are alternate weapons. Not really sure. But I love that there are full escape pods for RCS. It's fully kitted out, right? It has all the bits and bobs. And
even the transport emitters.
Yeah, are those... No, they can't be. They're the front copper details that are kind of transporter emittery. They wouldn't be those as well, would they?
I don't know. They do. They very much look like transport emitters. You can see the smaller ones, which look more accurate. There's 2 back from that, and there's 2 at the back as well.
Would there be some purpose to having giant transporter emitters, potentially for beaming fighters in?
Beam the fighters right into the bays, maybe.
Because that would need significantly, you could argue, a larger punch of power to transport. You'd assume you'd need to design to at least do sort of 4, 5, 6 at a time, right? Otherwise, what's the point? I wonder.
Good question. I don't know.
Next view is the back with the impulse engines revealed. Nice classic E-like with a single after-torpedo launcher.
The delta's backwards. I don't know if it's a mirrored image, but...
Mirrored texture, woohoo.
And I love that there's not the standard like rear shuttle bay type detail as well, which seems odd. You'd think you'd have a big like hangar bay there for different deployment or, receiving ships in, because the front launchers the front bays are at the bottom.
Well, they've got side bays at launch. The front bays are the return.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, so both could do both, right? But there are side launches. I mean, there is a slight recessed possible detail underneath the back blinky, which possibly could be a intended shuttle bay.
And a decided lack of escape pods on the top, at least. So I'm wondering, crew-wise, what this thing's capable of. You'd think it would have quite a contingent. This I would put on par with like a modern-day aircraft carrier. But I mean, those have 6,000 personnel. The Galaxy class only has 1,000 personnel. So, yeah.
Yeah, where would you... there are escape pods in the middle, but yeah, there is a decided lack at the back. Possibly that implies to me the aft section, which is kind of its own unit. There's a slight distinction between the side pods, where they launch, the back, which is the engines. I'm wondering if not only are there possibly 2 warp cores in the back to power enough power for the different drives, possibly the back... There might be the repair and building factory-style portion of the ship.
Could be. Yeah.
Therefore, you wouldn't, what are you escaping from? There's all this hardware is there. What else have you got? Which would kind of make sense. I mean, launching or resupply or repair, or even building, I mean, make it a factory as well, right?
Well, you say that, but at the same time, in a factory, if you're working, doing your job, and something happens, you need to have easy access to an escape pod. So you think they'd be more near there. Now, I don't know what the bottom has. Bottom has more, but we know escape pods are like, 8 to 12 people per? So you can kind of get a sense for this crew complement by looking at the escape pods. And there's not a ton up there. You can see like a couple rows of 3 each.
Yeah, there's some, but you're right, not... would they assume that everyone can find their fighters and launch, and therefore they're escape vehicles? I would not assume that if I were them. I would make sure the thing is decked out in escape pods.
Because, they're sure there would be fighter pilots that were trained specifically for that. But it's, again, like an aircraft carrier. There's maintenance crews aboard. There's a whole bunch of people that wouldn't necessarily know how to fly a fighter. And if... Yeah, I don't know. It's just an interesting detail. We'll see how many are on other views of it. But
and not that it's the most ideal place, but there are definitely 4 strips below the impulse engines, which are absolutely blank. They could be 4 rows of escape pods, and not necessarily the most elegant place to put them, but there's a space right there, right? And that would factor in a good chunk of the people. Yeah, what would you say for crew complement if you had to guess?
Well, judging by the size based on the deployment from the Sovereign class, it is not a huge ship. But that being said, it's got a lot of internal volume just because of its design.
And it shouldn't have scientists, really?
Yeah.
There's Bob, of course, but Bob's always there. But apart from Bob, there's no scientists. Yeah.
I'm looking at the window scale of this particular image.
And not a lot of windows either. It's sporadic windows.
Yeah.
Would you go as far as, say, like a Galaxy 1000, just redistributed to tactical and fighter personnel?
I think it would be probably more than a Galaxy class. So, yeah.
Especially if, and it might seem a bit silly, we know that Starfleet has rotational shifts for day and night. Would you not therefore need rotational day and night for fighter pilots? And given that is a harder job than just doing engineering, you might do the Jellicoe 3 rotation, have 3 pilots per craft.
Jellicoe's 4 rotation.
Four per craft, right? So, yeah, you could be looking at far more. Really interesting concept. Next view, this thing is a lot busier from the bottom. Stuff is now, and this is the fully out mode, so of course everything is revealed. Lot more dense, a lot more things.
Yeah, there you can see some hangar bays with the force fields on, and you can see the launch areas as well on the side.
And there's 4 that are in the bottom, and 4 that are in the side. So that's 8 per side. But they're not that big. Obviously, the middle ones go further in, but the ones at the back, there's not that much space. I'm guessing they go down on flooring.
Well, it's interesting because they kind of took a page out of Battlestar Galactica's book a little bit with different launch tubes, like actually having launch tubes or launch bays and receiving bays as well, instead of just having regular shuttles bays, right? So,
I mean, you can't not really be slightly inspired. It's so iconic.
Yeah.
But also, how do you not do that? And this is a way of not doing that. And I do quite like the retrieval bay. It adds such a pop of colour and implied fun with the force field generators. And there are more escape pods at the bottom. Your quest has been answered by a double rack of 4.
but still not many. That's the weird thing.
And there is lots of space at the back again, absolutely absent. No phasers and no escape pods. Yeah, the back is oddly undesigned, or undeep. Although, just a mild joke. I love how effective the Basards are going to be. Tucked in there, really good at getting stellar matter from the front. Really effective.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah,
because there's a point to them. Not as effective here.
Yeah, I'd like to think that they could extend out possibly, but there's kind of that area at the bottom which would impede that a little bit.
I mean, they do extend a bit. I did for these versions, and there's arms, but so they're not designed to go all the way out. That would be kind of ridiculous. It would say change the aesthetic a lot, and this clearly is meant to feel, as I say clearly, but more like a Galaxy class era, as in they started designing it then. It might be more sleek in terms of some elements, but it's Galaxy-ish era. If it had been slightly later, they could have had the Defiant approach, whereby the Basards was the other side of the launch bays, which would make more sense and more integrated, but that would then look a whole different era. So I like this, although structurally it's like, they don't work quite as well. But I don't know if Basard intake is necessarily the top of your priority list if you're fighter combating. But also, don't include them. Like, put them somewhere else, right?
Again, 2 more torpedo tubes at the back. We would assume there'd be more, but there's only 2. Lower impulse engines as well, which I think is great.
Although missing some phases at the back, and there's almost like a zone they could be, and they're just not. But Stuart, let's see how we feel after we ortho this, because orthos doeth change us to feel. Orthographically, Stuart, top and bottom. Ooh, you're laughing.
All I see is the bottom. There's a Battlestar Galactica just tucked right in the bottom of this thing.
Oh.
It's just minus the pods a little bit, but yeah, you just pull that middle part out, it's Battlestar Galactica. It's like, that's their nod to it. It's like, hey, there's the actual ship right there.
Imagine if that was like the captain's yacht. That's pretty beautiful. I think it looks good. It's actually reasonably well balanced for being a brick.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
And stocky. Like I said, it looks very tank-like. It just feels like it would take a lot to destroy this ship, which I kind of love. There's no like weak points. It's just
yeah. Although actually, I really interesting. You talked about escape pods earlier. They are absolutely focused on the top in that one zone.
And
on the bottom, they're front and back, but they're missing everywhere else. That's really interesting because escape pods imply importance of crew, so perhaps that back bit is where the crew most located. But this seems very odd to do that. I feel like they're missing escape pods from the front of the ship.
And it's odd because the Enterprise D and the Sovereign, I mean, got those big rows of them, right? Like implying a lot of crew. This just kind of minimizes that when you have so much surface area that you could add so many more. It's an odd choice, I think.
Yeah, really odd. They're not even mirrored because often they just are the same on top and bottom, and they're missing them on the.
The one thing that might be of import here is it could be that they're stacked, like 8 emergency escape pods deep, and then they just launch out the same tubes, and they can load up from different decks, as opposed to just having a saucer where you can't really have that depth. So that's why they're spread out more on the other style ships.
Well, that brings back to the question of where is the place that people work, because on a normal version of Starship, everywhere is the answer. Therefore, you need escape pods everywhere. If this thing is super heavily, whatever, then maybe those zones are the only ones. But it does feel odd to, and there is, like I said, active space to include them. Actually, let's go back for a second and look at that sketch. Let's see if they are other places. They definitely have more escape pods on these concept orthos. The bottom, it looks identical, but the top, they definitely have a couple more, but not a lot. I mean, the front is also none. So if it was to replicate this, I mean, that's a faithful version, and that's Invasion. What are you playing at? 2004, whatever. But let's see how this compares the front, back, and side. The side for me is kind of the iconic view for whatever is. So I'm pleased to see that. But what do you think?
But I mean, it's purpose built, and I kind of like the stockiness of it. You can see rows of windows there. You can kind of get an implication of how many decks they would be, which is nice.
And they feel properly designed as to where they are. Like, okay, this is area of live, this is area of livability, this is area of livability. Isn't the side like an alligator?
Yeah. Looks specifically like one of the Transformers that turned into an alligator. I can't remember his name, but yeah, it's got that head of an alligator look for sure.
It's a very odd front. It's everything is a curve, right? Everything's a it's cool, but it's weird. No, I like it. I like it, Stuart.
Oh, me too.
But let's look at some other detail views. Here is the front, back. Are those maybe side torpedo launcher details? No, they're 2D. Darn. But there's a docking port, because that's important.
Those bays, front bays. I love the look with the force fields on. That looks really good.
It's atmospheric. And they've got a front deflector.
Mm-hmm. It's very small, yeah. Again, there's so much surface area on this thing that I would have made different choices personally, but I kind of like the way this looks. Like, I cannot complain. And big reaction control thrusters.
Yeah, I love those. Yeah, I would definitely have added more exterior stuff had I also had the chance. More phaser strips, more escape pods. But there is something to be said for its kind of efficient look, right?
Yeah, and longer phaser strips as well. Like, there's a lot of... You can just have, like, long ones.
Yeah, because you can fire 2 beams from the same strip. That is a thing that happens. Next view, though, is an unusual view. Now, this definitely gives us tank feel. Here we go, right?
And I assume that the bridge is on top, which I don't necessarily like in this design. This would make more sense, like, be like a Federation class dreadnought where it's in the middle of the ship. Like, more of a command center would be better. But they're maintaining one of the Gene Roddenberry's 4 rules of starship design, put that bridge on top. And it could very well not be the bridge. I don't know necessarily, but gets that feel for sure.
Now, the place I said earlier might be a transport emitter. To me, that reads like doors.
Retractable doors, yeah.
Emergency landing bay or even work bay, dedicated work bay.
Well, they have them on the bottom as well, which is a little bit of a different shape, but roughly the same size.
They do? Okay. Huh. What do you think? Work bay designated bays that can help repair things and tractor things out? And
my guess... Well, it would be interesting if they were roller doors, sure, and either arms came out that could clamp onto a ship, or even like tractor emitters come out and then they can tractor stuff to different areas.
It's interesting. Yeah,
it also looks like there's a door behind the bridge as well.
Oh yeah, it totally is. Because you would need to design into this not just launching, but multiple different use cases of recovery, like the squadron worth of the plethora of choices. Well, speaking of that door, the next shot is a close-up. Yep, absolutely a door there. Weird, but I mean, hey, having recovery bays on multiple parts of the ship, that makes sense, so I commend them for that.
The phaser strips seem almost like separate phaser emitters. It's an odd-looking phaser strip.
It's slightly, yeah. And the next view is looking at the side bays. Yeah, very BSG, but I dig them. Another docking bay as well, or attachment bay. I could have done with. There are some windows next to the launch bays. I could have done with a little control window for a room designated fighter control, like on the top of the Connie. Just a larger room, maybe more like the bay windows on a Voyager. Just to kind of give a bit extra. That would have been cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Next is the detail on the back, though. Big engines.
It's such a big blank canvas at the back. I hate that the delta's backwards. It's bothering me.
You can see where the blank grey is where the text for the residue would be. Yes, it's interesting how blank it is, yeah. And these little raised details that the sort of hexagonal, but not. There's so many of them. I wonder what they're meant to be. Wow. Deep dive.
Agonizers. That's what they have at the back for weapons instead of... You got 2 photons there, but agonizer beams.
Maybe they come at me, agonizers. You try, you're going to get the agonizers. And everyone's like, what? What are you on about? But I guess a fighter carrier by itself is confusing, so let's double the confusion.
Yeah.
And the last detail shot is a view of those bays with double force field, which I like. Nice bit of depth.
For some reason, these bays are giving me a Star Wars vibe.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Oh, and there are normal doors between as well, looks like.
Assuming those are door details, but yes, yeah. And they're very similar to the launch bay doors that you can see on the side there, so yeah, it would make sense.
And I wonder, because you'd mentioned earlier the fact that it can fire a large amount of weapons as a fortress mode. If you look either side of the docking blue, there's a hexagon detail again, and then a little, possibly a torpedo tube, a little square. I mean, they're right underneath the launch bay, which seems interesting, but I mean, having 8 bottom torpedo launchers would be a hell of a thing, especially if you're like, right, launch fires in 3, 2, and then you launch sped first, and then the fighters could be interesting.
Be a good distraction to protect your fighters when you launch. Just go over an enemy ship, fire a bunch of photons straight down, launch fighters at the same time.
I mean, isn't that just BSG in a nutshell? Firing the flak fire.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
And then you've got to dodge it yourself. Yeah. And then the last picture is the first picture is the Typhon in all its beauty. Yeah, again, I want to commend Starfleet Online for a beautiful recreation that's both faithful and yet their own art style. We've celebrated them in the past for doing game ships. These games are in so many people's hearts for playing in the noughties and the 2000s, and it opens up the chance that maybe in more years to come, more famous ships will be brought to the same amazing level that you can play on in game and do missions with. And since Stowe is so variable, you can play against Klingons or whoever with these ships, and it's exciting. And this is such an iconically strange one. It's beautiful to see it come to life, and I hope they'll do more. Anything you've learned or closing thoughts, Stuart, on this one? Because it's definitely our most detailed look at, for sure, of this.
Not really. I just want to say, like, when I first saw this back when it first came out and I was playing the game, I was like, this is really cool. I never thought we'd be talking about it so in depth, which is what I love about Trekyards. To actually just break these things down and have discussions about it. I would love to get to talk to the designer and see exactly what the thought process was behind a lot of these decisions. But I love it's got a very militaristic kind of carrier feel to it, and kind of outside the realm of what a Starfleet ship would be designed like.
And yet still that little flair of Starfleet.
Yes,
they did
absolutely.
try. So yeah, really cool. So if you want to get this ship, go play Stowe and go, get it. Not rocket science, is it? And if you want to watch our other videos on the Heritage Bundle, then do look out for those. We're going to do all the different ships and give them the full fun. There is a Borg fusion cube somewhere in our future.
Anyway, guys, if you like that, please comment down below what you thought about this ship when you first played Star Trek Invasion. What you think of it now? Do you have it in STO? Are you going to get it? Let us know in the comment section. And like he said, check out our other videos on this from years past. We're doing this for 10 years now, so we got a lot of content, and we've changed quite a bit over those years. So check that stuff out. And you can like those videos as well. Thumbs up on this.
Go back and see what we said. That'd be an interesting experiment,
Yeah. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Click the notification bell icon to all so you don't miss any content, including lives. And be a part of the community. Hang out with us. We appreciate you guys.
And if you can support us directly, then please do via Patreon. It's a monthly service. Or join the channel on YouTube, also monthly. That is a every month little bit towards what we do here. Or one-time donations at trekyards@hotmail.com is the PayPal. That goes towards travel costs for trips, which we've just done. And it was great. And that was absolutely essential for that. So thank you if you can. Or super chat during live. We love the conversation, the integration, and the high that you guys offer just by being here. So support us via super chat on that. Or super thanks on any video. It makes a big difference. And again, thank you in advance.
That's right. So until next time, he's Commander Cockings.
He's got a Foley.
See you guys later.
Bye, guys.